Support Narativ's independent journalism at patreon.com/narrative and check out our podcast wherever you get your podcasts. And don't forget to subscribe and download. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Narrative Live. It is officially the end of the Republican National Convention week, which is a relief to all of us, I'm sure, because it's been lots of late nights, too many late nights. Welcome, guys. LB's here, our very special guest.
Hi.
Noel Casler's here, and Eric Garland, and Greg Oliar is here. Nice to have you guys with us today. I don't know what your guys' thoughts were. It felt like they were not running very much new at the convention this week. The same slogan, "Make America Great Again," and pretty much the same policies with a little bit of amped up fear and loathing. What is your takeaway, Noel? You know Donald Trump pretty well. What was your takeaway?
Yeah, I mean, it was the same thing. It was a MAGA rally with a little more cocaine and a little more, VIP access, it seemed like, And it was exhausting to watch it. I was clean shaven on Monday, and just a couple of days.
Last night took a long time. I mean, he was droning on at the end and just droning on. And I don't know what he sounds like on a daily basis, but he certainly sounded very, at least at that time of the night, quite sleepy.
Yeah, that's very late for him. I try to warn people on Twitter. I mean, he's exactly. He's a sundowner. I mean, we would be done.
Oh, really?
You get an hour of work out of him. He doesn't work. He
gets up at 10 o'clock he watches TV, watches little remnants of Fox and Friends, and then
that's it.
That's it?
Exactly. He has the meatloaf hour. He always has to have meatloaf. That's his dinner, like his regular thing. And
Wait a minute.
Yeah, they call it the meatloaf hour. Yeah. So if you're taping with him, you're going to run up against the meatloaf hour, which is like 6 o'clock, 6 to 7. He has to eat meatloaf no matter what you're doing, or a cheeseburger or something. He has to have his dinner.
Now, the other person that who's very, a lot of the people who were involved yesterday, Ivanka pretty well, Eric Trump very well, Don Jr. as well, and then, Melania, right? I'm presuming I'm naming all the right people. But you also know Mark Burnett, who is the executive producer of the broadcast. Tell us a little bit more about how you know Mark and how long you've known him and what impact he had on the broadcast yesterday.
Well, I've known that was all Mark. I mean, he sent his producers, which weren't really, they were like B-list guys that would get his coffee, and they got a credit as being producers, the people that were involved this week. But, it was I've known him, since the mid-2000s, since I started working on Celebrity Apprentice. And that was all Mark Burnett. I mean, it was a continuation of when Trump was elected, Mark approached him with an idea that they would take him from Trump Tower down to the White House on the back of a motorcycle. He wanted to have a gang of motorcycle. This is a true story. I'm not lying. He wanted to have motorcycle, escort of bikers bring him down to the White House. And he was talked out of it. Trump was talked out of it. But so that was all Mark Burnett, and you could tell it was a television production because that revamping of the Rose Garden sort of came out of the blue. So besides an opportunity to sort of grift a little more money, they were clearly taking those trees out for a crane shot. That long walk of Melania down the hallways and stuff. You couldn't have done that in the Rose Garden as it existed 6 months ago.
If you look here, this is the Rose Garden as it was, and then on the right is what it looks like now. So it doesn't look like they've done actually very much. They sort of have added this walkway, which I think must be for a crane, right? I mean, it must be because they want to get a crane up and down there. Otherwise, for a TV production perspective, there's no even area to put a crane somewhere else. And it looked like a lot of the shots came from there. And then on the right-hand side, it looks like they've taken away some of these great rose. They must be, they're not rose trees. They're
crab apple.
Yeah. So
the crab apple. Yeah.
So that's we can see her walking. I think was the point behind that, because she took this long strident walk all the way down under that portico, and at the start of her talk, and it was captured by that crane. So I think that whole
Right.
renovation, it seems to me like you're absolutely correct, was all about allowing the crane to be there and allowing the stage to be there and allowing her to walk down that walkway.
You're absolutely right. That's what it was. You can see it clearly in that picture. They just pushed a jib right down that thing at the pace of her walking and got the shot.
Yep.
That's exactly how you would do it if you were shooting a TV show. I mean,
the pageantry of the event certainly felt like there was a lot of the big jib shots that he's famous for. We got to see the White House in a grand way. I really thought there was a lot there that was very impressively done.
That was such an abomination. What they did, broadcasting that. What the hell was that? I don't know, that pageant, the Trump pageant show, from our house, from the White House. And we can get into all that. Everyone is even a little bit informed. It understands what they were violating by doing that. And that these people they don't care. This family doesn't care, right? No. But I want everyone to take a minute and really hear what Noel just said. There's even reporting on this. It is Mark Burnett putting this on. You cannot have these fascist family-run regimes at this level, at the level of the United States, without major propagandists, professional propagandists, people who come in with skill sets and power and money and ability and can pull off that kind of pageantry. And in our town, we still, Noel's on the New York side of this. I'm on the West Coast side of this. This man, Mark Burnett, is still completely coddled by our town. They can continue to prop him up. They continue to buy from him. He keeps producing shows. He owns and runs MGM. They're still doing output deals with different producers. They're still hooked into doing distribution with larger studios as well. This is an abomination that this man is still flying high.
It is.
At the top of our society and at the top of our industry. He should be shunned forever for what he is doing.
He actually constructed the entire myth that is Donald Trump. I mean, if you remember correctly, Donald Trump was not as rich. You were telling us this last time you were here, Noel, that, wasn't as rich, or at least didn't live the lifestyle that he lives in the show The Apprentice, that they kept having to dress up his offices and his even in editing, I think they were told to make sure that all the non-rich stuff was sort of cut out and that he was made to look more affluent than he was. I mean, that literally is the definition of a creation of a myth. And for 14 years, right? I mean, that was on the air for a long time.
While he was creating the myth, when he came in, they had to rent furniture for his offices to make him look wealthy. And he had like the leased helicopter with his name on it. So they put Trump in the helicopter and shot all the B-roll of him surveying the city like he owned it. But the thing is, while he was creating that myth and the crew was creating it, Mark was exposed to who Donald Trump really was. He was using the N-word, as I told you last time, with impunity in front of, he was saying the N-word and he would say spick, in front of obviously Latin like sound guys and stuff. So he was doing all this boorish stuff. So Mark wasn't only creating a false image, he was cleansing the personality and packaging it to middle America. Whereas if he was a true reality show, people would have watched it, but they would have watched it to see what a racist idiot Donald Trump was and how he was really broke and not really a billionaire. And another producer would have been happy to go in that direction because that would have been ratings gold too. But Burnett rather had an ulterior motive with Russia and Putin. Like, let's make this guy into a worthy commodity as an asset for perhaps what we're seeing now.
I'm really interested in that because, he was really connected to Putin, right? I mean, there were two instances. He tried to do shows for the Russians. One was called Destination Mir, and the other one was called, the other one was a show attempting to do a reality show around Putin himself, an outdoor reality show around Putin himself. I mean, that's not, getting access to Putin is not easy, presumably.
No.
And getting two shows like that, that's supposed to be pretty hard to get approval for.
Can I quickly explain that?
Please. Yeah, please.
Do you know somebody who works for a KGB officer producing propaganda? You know who that is? What we call that? That's an agent or a spy of some, of some form.
You've got to consider having Tom Arnold. Tom's a friend of mine. He knows Mark better than anybody I know in that town. Mark was on his way to South America. You know, he was like a British, you know, special forces guy who was going to a colony in South America to kill black people, you know, which is to kill minority, which is what they were doing in the early 90s and stuff. He was part of, see, Eric, you got to have Tom on. He knows the details. But I remember
Mark Burnett was on his way as part of the British.
He was on his way to be a British, you know, he was a British special forces guy who was on his way to South America. Got off the plane in LA, decided it would be better to make it in LA than to go in the jungle, you know, fighting for the waning, you know, British Empire, and became a nanny. He was like a male nanny in Malibu. And that's how he started his...
He went to fought in the Falklands, right? Didn't you say he fought in the Falklands earlier?
Yes, he did.
And he was on his way back to do some sort of like underhanded kind of like military operation. I'm not an expert on this. Tom has literally gotten a fist fight with the guy at the Emmys last year. Tom is your man to go. Right. I'm telling you, Tom is he knows it all because he knows Mark's number. Mark was begging Tom, and he knows Donald Trump too. Very well. And he's got great anecdotes of taking Donald to the Playboy Mansion and stuff, and taking Eric to Hawaii to try to get him sober because Trump had disowned Eric Trump at one point. Donald had, you know. So you gotta have Tom on here.
Well, that we definitely will. The things you're looking at in the middle screen here is an article about the Destination Mir show, which was going to be a show about their space station, I guess, about the Russian space station. And then the other one is him pursuing this reality show in 2015, which I thought the timing was really interesting. I didn't realize it was that late. So this was about the time that I guess Trump was starting to think about running for the presidency. So, and he's at that time, he's in contact with Putin at that time.
Hell of a back
just
channel.
Before he runs the inauguration production. I mean, that's a hell of a back channel. In fact, it almost feels like, I might be guessing here, but it feels like maybe Burnett talked to Putin about Trump being a president, running as president before. It feels like that's maybe the origin of the conversation, could be.
Exactly. And I'll say this and I'll shut up. When I worked on The Celebrity Apprentice, Felix Sater had Trump Organization business cards. Right. Felix Sater was the guy who put Ivanka in Putin's chair behind his desk in the Kremlin when she was trying to build Trump Tower. So there was a couple people involved, but Mark was the glue that sort of made all these worlds connect and gave it a wash of legitimacy. Tom Barack came in with some Hollywood money.
They are friends.
Right.
They are
but
friends.
I make this one point and I'll shut up. But like Trump follows 47 people on Twitter. Okay, 2 of those people are Mark Burnett and his wife, who's blocked me, Roma Downey, blocked by an angel.
Oh, she blocked me too. She blocked me too.
Blocked by an angel.
Yeah.
Oh no! Listen. There's a lot of nervous people in a little Malibu clique every time I come on here and we start talking about this subject. You just are.
We spoke about the people not getting anything new. There was no new slogan, but the women of the Trump family got nice new dresses. All of them. Look at that. They had very expensive outfits all week long. This last one on the green one, it was $3,000 for the dress. But let's go through some of them. So this is the military look that she wore on her first speech. That was a pretty good speech that she made.
Who's military, Eric? Who's military, Greg? Whose military might that be? Doesn't look like ours. Does it look like ours?
It doesn't look like ours.
Matches Fidel Castro pretty well.
It does. It has like a Che Guevara kind of feel to it. Yeah. And I know many of you will be wanting to wear it, wearing a look like this at least.
Now, how do I get that look?
Yeah, how do you get look? I know it's too, some of us might be a little expensive for some of us.
Who wore it better?
But I was able to find a couple of alternatives online. Here you go. You can find these, and these are just like $18.99 each, and they're available for Halloween. So you can wear the Che look then. And also, as a special announcement, I've just heard that Ivanka and Eric are doing a special edition action figures for. Look at them, and in a tribute to their stepmom's, outfits on the RNC, they'll be available at the MAGA store at a discount.
Because they love each other so much,
and they're in mission.
How were they together,
the
Noel,
outfitters-
behind the scenes?
They hate
Let's
each
hear a little
other.
bit about that. There you go.
They hate each other. Ivanka calls Melania the junkie wife, and you saw a little bit of their relationship. Did you see the clip yesterday?
I've got it. Yeah, we can pull it up.
When Ivanka passed Melania. Well, think about this. Ivanka said something to Melania. She said something snarky to her. I guarantee you, because that's what
that's how you do it. That's how it's done.
Exactly.
That's
That's what I saw. Their relationship was very much like just the air of politeness, but a cutting little barb. And whatever she said, she sort of wounded Melania, because Melania gave that fake smile and then took in the insult.
Right.
That's what I saw in that moment, having seen them behave like that.
I've seen Ivanka in one place, the Emmy Awards once, and she really is not a nice person. You know, sometimes they have these kids, they autograph the celebrities autograph their whatever items they have outside the Emmy Awards, and she was so rude to all of these kids. Like, she was really, really rude to every single one of them. You know, and I mean, how can you be rude to kids? And that's just she does not seem like a very nice person at all.
She's not. And I told you last time, I mean, she had a 5-person glam squad that Mark Burnett had to pay for, and she would show up, you know, the glam squad would show up 6 hours early. She was the only one who got a trailer, and it was the longest trailer I've ever seen. I was like, does he have a sweatshop in there? Like, is Will Smith on the show? I mean, literally, it was like, it took up half the underground parking lot at the Museum of Natural History. Everybody else was piping rain, you know?
So tell me about Eric. That you mentioned and I think you mentioned on Twitter the other day that he is a maybe not Trump's son.
Rudy Giuliani. Next time, put up a picture of Rudy Giuliani's son who works in the White House, and put up a picture of Eric Trump and put them side by side. Okay?
Really?
And tell me who his dad is.
Oh, that's like the Prince Harry experiment, you know, when you look up Prince Harry and what was his name, the lover of Princess Diana. So it'll be a similar kind of thing. So Giuliani's son works in the White House. I didn't realize that. That's a whole other thing too.
He's the director of outreach to sport teams.
Oh, because you need that. So
I do outreach to Greyhound track racing and highlight betting. Yeah.
I used to work at a publishing company in the 90s, you know, in between TV gigs, and it was basically like a money laundering op for this, you know, mobster. And there'd be dudes named like Rocco who had an office, and I'm like, what does Rocco do? I've never seen him. Oh, he's in shipping, you know.
He's in logistics. I'm telling you.
Logistics. Everyone's in logistics.
He's in logistics.
They're like, shut up, kid. You know.
So Giuliani had an affair with Ivana. Is that what we're meant to believe, or is it
with Ivana? Yeah, but I mean, I can't prove this. That's speculation. But they look the exact same to me, and the two of them were tied at the hip. You know, Donald and Rudy. You know, Rudy cleaned out the Italian mob so the Russian mob could move into New York City.
Right.
You know, he's seen as a hero.
That is correct.
Here.
You know,
I think that's somebody who first said that.
Exactly. Yeah. So they've been business. You know, look at Rudy last night. He's lying. I was in Manhattan the last 2 days. It's not this hellscape. You know, it's not escape from New York. Everyone's actually relaxed because the cops have basically disappeared from the harassment crime standpoint. You know, so there is a lot more graffiti, which I happen to like. I think it looks good. But it's, you know, if you listen to Rudy last night, you basically wouldn't make it out of Manhattan if you happen to, you know, drive your car down there. I don't want to get too gossipy, but like I did the 9/11 memorials for. It's like too late for that. I did. You just said the guy's dad was like. But I did the 9/11 memorials forever, from like the second year the first year we started doing them until the museum opened was the last one I did. So I would do like the VIP tent. So, you know, we'd have dignitaries come down and read out a name in front of these children, which I watched grow up. You know, they went from toddlers to teenagers in the, 10 years after 9/11 I did the show. Rudy is the only guy I ever saw come to that and smile. He would come in and smile in the VIP tent. His wife, Judith, hit on me one morning, and she was like giving me the eye and checking me out. And then I saw that Rudy was aware of it, and she goes, "Who is that guy?" And Rudy's like, "He just works at the mayor's office. Like, he's just somebody." And I didn't, but Rudy was just like, "God damn you! Why are you always hitting on every, you know?"
I mean,
it was pretty funny.
His whole role in 9/11 is still very much under debate, right? I mean, there's still
there's no debate about it. The guy exploited 9/11.
Yeah.
First of
100%.
all, we see the image of him on 9/11 of he's coming out of this building and there's dust all around him and stuff. The only reason that happened is because he unilaterally moved the Office of Emergency Management to 7 World Trade Center, which is fucking stupid because that's the place where everybody wanted to attack. The WTC complex is the place where the terrorists were going to attack. They'd already attacked it in 93. Rudy went against what everybody had said and put it there. So basically he was wandering around looking for a spot to make a new command center because he didn't listen to the experts, right? So, but on TV, the optics were great because, oh my God, it's this guy and he's walking around and isn't he a hero? Exactly. No, he's a fucking moron. And yes, he talked well that day. And yes, he projected calm in this stuff while Bush was pretty much AWOL for most of the day. But how many people wouldn't have done that as a mayor of a city? Like, is that really
I just can't imagine Rudy would have been the one to run into a disaster. And, he just doesn't strike me as the guy who would actually do that. And he did that day. And I was like, well, why would he do that? If he's such a...
He did. Greg is right. It was a photo op. He knew that if something happened, it was going to happen down there, and he would get the opportunity to walk from City Hall downtown. And just like Greg just described, he would look like a hero, a general marching into battle. And let me say one thing, and Greg knows more about this than me, but I lived downtown after 9/11, and we moved to 180 East End, which is right across from Gracie Mansion, right after 9/11. And so I lived there for years, but that's across the street from Gracie Mansion. So when I looked down into Gracie Mansion, into the driveway from the
that's a good view.
It's a nice apartment. So when Rudy told everybody the air was safe to breathe down at Ground Zero for the months after, we were on the East River. So the winds would change at 3 a.m, and the bedroom, it was a nice fall, so we would leave the windows open. The bedroom would fill up every night with this acrid smoke of burning computers and other horrible things that you don't want to smell. And I was like, this can't be good for anybody. And I would notice that every night when Rudy came back from City Hall, after he told everybody to breathe the air, he would get out of the SUV with a mask on his face.
Interesting.
You know what I mean? And I noticed it. I was like, he's telling everybody, but he wore a mask into November and December. So that's interesting because breathing the air.
Because that brings up the mask situation that we're having right now. It seemed remarkable to me that they had so many people in a venue like that when there is just coronavirus is still spreading, and I guess this goes back to Mark Burnett's ability to create a myth. But boy, that's not a healthy situation. They seem to have endangered people's lives by all accounts. We haven't seen the results of that yet, but it sure looks like it could have.
Nazis don't care if people die. That's kind of what it means to be that. So, what's the sacrifice of a Herman Cain or 3 if it makes for a really good shot? Why not chop down the cherry trees that Jacqueline Kennedy Onassis planted if we can get a good shot of Melania? Like, let's create this myth. Who cares if somebody gets the disease? Because I think there's already reports that people have it that were there.
Oh wow!
That's what I read.
That's
what I read today.
Are there really?
So I don't know. I saw it on Twitter, and I have not verified it, but I saw.
Well, maybe
everybody's
Rudy.
crammed into
Rudy's like
also one more thing. One more thing about the
wiping
sweat.
it on his girlfriend, and it's like, what is he doing?
I spent the summer. I lived a summer in D.C. between junior and senior year of college, and August in Washington, D.C. is brutal. It's like Vietnam jungle.
Yeah.
It's hot and it's humid. And I think last night was one of those nights, which you could tell by Rudy sweating like that and Trump probably being tired and feeling it. I'm sure they have stuff blowing on him to cool him down up on the
stage.
They
did. I saw when Ivanka's hair was being blown by a professional fan. It must have been. It wasn't an accidental blowing.
Yeah. It's brutal. Yeah.
Washington was not good at surveying land in that respect.
Now, do they really think?
Really not.
Sorry, but do they really think that this is going to work on America? Like, does America not? I know people at the coasts don't believe it, but are people in the middle of the country going to believe that everything is now normal? Because look at that. They showed it to us on TV. Mark Burnett showed us on TV that it was normal.
Well, that's a great great departure point for what's really going on here and doesn't make any sense. Because if you know how electioneers, like the election engineers, work, and they know what makes a campaign. Number one, people vote with their pocketbooks. So I think the 18%, unemployment, we've got the stock market high. So what? People aren't going to work. Kids can't go to school. That is the stuff that cuts through to the real America, which is not just in the middle part, but same concept. And you can, this is how they got into this mess. Is Mark Burnett, when we weren't talking about his whatever he did in the Falklands or whatever the hell when he was getting recruited for whatnot, we didn't know that. We didn't realize Trump. No one took Trump seriously until it was too late. Was a different media environment, and now we know how deep this goes. And they're trying the exact same play because they only have one playbook, and it isn't the one that fits with the actual American
reality.
Public. You can weaponize certain people to go screaming insane Karen or shoot somebody. You can weaponize people like that, but it is really hard to propagandize your way out of somebody who was working 40 hours a week with full benefits, now working 11 hours a week. Although the lights are being shut off.
But the fear thing is what they seem to be striking at, right? They seem to be believing that if they scare America enough, it'll be okay. But they're not scaring them with coronavirus, which is the thing that they should be scared of. They're scaring them with this faux myth of a black urban uprising that's going to swallow up the suburbs.
And it's working. I mean, I grew up in Putnam Valley, northern Westchester, 20 minutes from where I am now. And I went to high school with the children of the people that sort of compromised the first white flight out of Manhattan. The Italians and the Irish that were like tradesmen and contractors and stuff, and moved up into, New York State, out of the Bronx, out of Manhattan, out of Queens and Brooklyn. Now those people's children are my age. Their children are now in their late 40s and 50s. And so they grew up hearing the fear around the kitchen table of like, the city used to be great, and then they let the minorities overrun it, and now it's just this hellhole. And so these kids were already sort of indoctrinated and ripe for that message. Because I see it working. I see people here in northern Westchester that are they're into Trump, and they're buying the propaganda.
They're scared. They really are scared.
Exactly. You think your house, their $350,000 or $500,000 house that's most of what you have on this planet. So if you think it's going to lose a property value and somebody's going to come and attack your children, and you're already inclined to be racist, and your whole world has already sort of been white, and that's always been the unspoken rule of the New York area, is that the minorities stay in the inner city and we get the suburbs now.
It really does feel like that's working. I mean, it does. And with the semiotics of last night, it does feel like it's going to still have an impact, at least. Maybe not working completely, but having an impact. Sorry.
I think it has an impact. I want to say this. So I'm in one of those weird pockets too, on a coast, but it's a moneyed environment, and it actually ends up being kind of conservative in an area that the moneyed environments typically are not, but they are here. I'm in this sort of a horse country area. So here's where I think the rubber meets the road with all of this. So it is going to work, and we do need to pay attention. And I hope that that the protesters, folks that are willing to put themselves out on the street and get out there and keep pushing and pushing and pushing for equality and rights and around these social issues that really do need to be highlighted, I think, with civil, showing, with protesting, with marching. I do believe in that. Hang on to the light, hang on to daylight is what I would say for those folks. Let them have the dark, let the dark be for the other folks, but keep your stuff in the daylight. That's going to be very, very meaningful and impactful. And there's a symbolism to that and an importance to that. Outside of that, this whole thing with the semiotics and the false narratives and, Donald Trump and all his kids getting up there and saying, this is Biden's America. It's like, no, this is your America, fuckers. You're in there. Like, this is all happening under your watch, and you're all powerful, and yet you can't bring this to a stop. It's just getting worse. And this is your big thing. It actually starts to fall apart around all of that. And when you're just sort of saying, well, we're going to just keep lying, which is what the Trump whole thing is. We're just going to lie. So just on something basic like this, his ratings were way lower than Joe's, than the Democratic National Convention. We had better ratings, way better ratings. Donald's were down. But he's going to say, we had better ratings. He's going to pronounce that he did. Well, that might work with your base of like, because they don't really care and they're not paying attention. But the reality is, actually, no, you didn't. People aren't paying attention to your message in the same way they're paying attention to Joe's.
Now, what were the ratings like in the swing states is really the question you should be asking, because the swing states are not the coast, and there's a very different sentiment around that. And we look at what's been going on in Kenosha over the last few nights. It certainly looks to anyone maybe it wasn't targeted at Wisconsin, but it could be targeted at Wisconsin. That is the swingiest of swing states, and if those kind of events happen on a local level, it certainly amps up the fear in those areas.
Even in that, I think folks are really clearly seeing what's going on and figuring it out. It's very obvious now. And this is not to say to sit back and just say, oh, it's all going to be okay. Remember that in 2016, there wasn't the turnout that we actually needed and that we must have this time, just even for Democratic registered voters. And everyone needs to really pay attention to their status as a voter. Make sure that your registration hasn't been messed with. Make sure they're not using the census to screw around with you as a registered voter. There's all kinds of weird tricks going on. Everyone needs to be clear about, am I registered? Am I good? Am I going to be able to vote? And figure out the best way for you to vote based on what state you live in, so that you know that your vote is going to be counted. That's super important right now, and that's where big focus should be. And the other big focus should be actually on something that we've all been doing all week. You got to give to Joe and Kamala. You have to give to that campaign. They really are going to need every single penny. And that is something important we can do. These are actions we can take. And then, Eric, you had an amazing action this morning that you put out.
Oh, yeah, that was great. That was great. And I can't get everything loaded up here, so you're going to tell people about it. I'll add it in editing later on.
What they need to do. We need to be in action now. We're all talking, tweeting. That's all great. But here's specific, measurable things that you can go out and do. And that's where everyone needs to be. They need to get shifted into that mode now. Now we're in the action mode.
You mean complain about the Hatch Act?
Yes.
That was a good idea. First of all, that came from Andrew Rose Gregory, one of the fabulous Gregory brothers who make all sorts of amazing viral musical content for years on YouTube. Just some of my favorite musical family, and he's an awesome guy. And he's the one who's like, pity the poor people at the Hatch Act unit, which opens in 13 minutes. And I was like, I've got an idea, because I lived in DC, and I know, like, for example, if you don't think that your elected official cares, they have a whole matrix for how to value you sending them an email, you making a phone call, you writing a letter, and you showing up in person at one of their offices, including the one in Washington or the one back at the local office. When you show up with shoe leather, dress nicely, please, be polite. And when you write a letter, they consider the will of somewhere between 50 and 500 voters. When you take the time to go, I'm thinking this, they know very intelligently that there's many, many, many more people who would not do that, but think the exact same way. When you create a record in the federal system, the bureaucracy is amazing. And one of my mentors, Very Coates, wife of my dear mentor, Joe Coates, she used to say, when everyone is complaining about bureaucracy, she'd go, bureaucracy, savior of civilization. And it kind of sounded snarky, and it wasn't. And we know it now, just absolutely. The same thing that slows you down at the DMV is what slowed Trump down. And they would have loved to rip apart the Department of Labor, to tear apart the Veterans Administration entirely, to take out the FBI. And they couldn't. It's too slow. But here's the thing. When you put your 2 cents in, when you file a Hatch Act complaint, a real one, here's the form. And it's not that hard. Here's the form. Who'd you see? Where'd you see it? What'd they do? Here's 5 checkboxes, because this is what the statute says. There's all kinds of stuff.
You don't have to have
like
been
that.
there. You could have just seen it on TV.
Not on TV. Happened right in front of us.
Thank you, Mark Burnett.
So every single person who watched that show could. Oh, that'll be fantastic.
Thanks, Mark Burnett.
So everybody basically could do this. Okay, and there's all these violations.
Probably
There's
did
like,
it for free.
yeah, there's probably like.
And we're gonna put all this on our Twitter accounts right after this. It's very hard to do this live in a show, but I was gonna try to put some stuff in Periscope. I'll see if I can. I don't know, but just go to our handles, go to our Twitter accounts right after this show, and we're gonna re-up this. What you can do with the Hatch-Ack. We're gonna re-up the link to donate to Joe and Kamala. This is sort of our push this week, is to get you in the mode as an audience at all the Republic of thinking there actually is stuff I can do. Go register. Get on top of your registry. Like, we just need to all be in action.
And especially in swing states. I mean, I'm still focused on the swing states because I think that's where, if you know anyone who lives there or doesn't live there but can vote there, it's really important to get them to vote there, because I think that is still going to be very close, no matter how you slice it. Every time I look at the opinion polls out of those states, it's still quite close. Not as close as it was in 2016, not even close to that. And some states like Kansas might be up for play. Who knows? North Carolina looks
Alaska
like
is.
Yeah. North Carolina looks like
Texas is, for God's sake.
But
Texas
it doesn't guarantee. Well, I don't know if Texas will flip, but we'll see. Could be.
It's closer than it's ever been in my lifetime.
It's not amazing. It could be an incredible sweep. It could be amazing if they're able to.
It's going to be an ass kicking. Can I say something about fear now, Zev?
Yeah.
Is it time?
Fear is good to talk about.
I just want to point out, I think that I felt this week, and I know that most people on our side felt fear and anxiety and stress. And we've felt this all along. We've felt this for the last 3.5 years, but this week it was more acute. I felt it. And I know that people in my universe felt it. It was almost like a cosmic, metaphysical force of fear. And I don't think it's any coincidence that Trump had his little fascist palooza this week. I think this week was designed, that event that I didn't watch it. I just read Noel's tweets about it, which was much more entertaining. I didn't watch a second of that fucking shit. Sorry. But the fact that it was even happening and I was aware that it was happening filled me with dread, honestly, because that's the one time that they have the platform that they can look in the cameras and create this reality. And the day that Trump spoke, the hurricane was coming. There was terrible weather here in upstate New York. There, thunderstorms and weird clouds and all this kind of stuff. My 14-year-old said, "Oh, on TikTok, this is a day of manifestation, and all this weird shit is going to happen." Really? And there seemed to be this cosmic pitch and moment to yesterday for whatever reason. And then, it's over. And I swear, I woke up this morning and I felt like so much better, like a weight had been lifted. And the reality is that it had, because that was their best shot last night. That was the time that all of the networks were going to show their little fucking bullshit without any or much filter. And they can't do that anymore. It's over. We survived it. The ratings sucked. Yes, it looked good. Yes, the military, outfit was very final 5 minutes of the last episode of The Hunters that Melania had. Very cool, chic and this and that. But the message was bullshit. And Zev, I need to correct you from something you said at the top of the show. Yeah. It's not Make America Great Again. It's Make America Great Again. Yes. Which is calls.
Is that really the slogan? I didn't see that on the.
That's what fucking Mike Pence said it. He said it
is what he said it, but I didn't see it on the poster.
I missed it.
With a straight fucking face.
Make
America
hilarious.
Great Again.
Amazing,
it's
amazing.
Like Final Tap tonight. I'm gonna rock you tonight. It makes no sense. And like, if you can't penetrate that, if you can't make the leap, hey, wait, isn't America supposed to be great already? Because these guys are, there's no hope for you. Right. But I think that people do know, and I know that this week has been rough on people emotionally and psychologically, and it's a fucking psyop. And we survived the psyop. Yeah. That's what I want to say. We survived it, and now it's all fucking downhill for that guy. Fuck you, Trump.
And his speech was terrible.
Oh. Yay!
Good, well said. Very well said.
Well said.
I did think that whole thing that happened in Kenosha was meant to play out differently. I'm not saying it was planned or anything like that, because I have no idea that it was. But the sparking of tension and the shooting of protesters, I think, at least they were going to capitalize on it differently into Trump's speech on Thursday. And then they didn't, or maybe couldn't, because the speech, because the 17-year-old teenager was arrested. Now, it's a little conspiratorial, I get that, but it's more, when you look at how these events have been constructed elsewhere in the world, where you have these psyops, but they also are actual provocation events that happen on the ground. It's not out of the realm of reality that something like that could have been not created, but at least an environment in which that could happen would have been fostered. And it certainly feels like that Kenosha militia, was looking for some trouble, if it were, on that day.
Yeah, I think, we're going to keep our eyes on it. I think, just to round that out for you, it absolutely is an expectation of, they're drumming up the optics that they want to run the propaganda that they've already got in the can, right? Like, they have their phrases, they have their, I love what Dan Rather said, I think it was today, like, so wait a minute, where Donald Trump's re-election strategy, his messages, re-elect Donald Trump so that he can save America from Donald Trump's America. It's like this is what he said.
It's true.
But if you think about it, that's what's going on. But they have their shit together. They get their memes ready and they get their semantics ready. They've tested it, and then it's not so much I don't think it's that conspiratorial because we have seen this. This is what Paul Manafort did in the Ukraine. This is what he did. It's what it,
and
get it going.
Facebook,
to get it going, Facebook
overlooked the Kenosha militia group page that was a call to action and said, get your guns and get over there and save this country. Somehow that was flagged a bunch of times, but Facebook overlooked it. A bunch of Facebook employees are pissed off at Mark Zuckerberg tonight, but it stayed up there. Right. And it did the damage it was intended to do. A dude and his mom got their guns and went there and murdered 2 people and blew somebody else's arm off,
But because it was discovered and the way it was, I think they ended up counterplaying against their narrative yesterday.
Go ahead.
I don't think that they depended on or they thought that the sports teams would react the way that they did.
Right.
So shout out to the NBA and the Milwaukee Bucks. Yes. The Milwaukee Bucks, who are the best team in the NBA and are from the state of Wisconsin, decided almost spur of the moment to just it's called a wildcat strike. It's not a boycott, to just be like, nah, fuck it, we're not playing. And that was the domino, and it tipped all this stuff. And the NBA, as the corporation that is the NBA, went all in, allowed the players to postpone the games. If you tuned in on TNT, Kenny the Jet Smith, who's the longtime guy in the studio, walked out in solidarity. And Chris Webber, always one of my favorite players, gave, I think an off the cuff almost, it seemed like, talk for like 10, 15 minutes that was really great that you can watch on YouTube. And then, the NBA is progressive and liberal relative to the sports leagues, but the fucking baseball games got postponed.
The baseball players.
It doesn't get more conservative. Even football isn't as conservative as baseball. So that had real meaning.
Well said. And can I just say, I worked on All-Star Game weekends. I worked on the big, the halftime show at the NBA All-Star Game for like 13 years. And like Greg said, the NBA is progressive and they're like a family and they're smarter. NFL is like a bunch of mobs. Like the Super Bowl is just like a mob run. They don't care about anything but money. Obviously it's gladiators, but the NBA is hip and smart, and I think that they're leading. I think, like Greg just said, it's spilling. The NHL canceled their games today.
I really didn't know that either.
That's what I heard.
It took them a while, but the NBA also announced.
But even the NHL, that's as white as it gets, right?
Yeah. No, even the guy with but the NBA announced today that the NBA arenas that they play in are going to be voting sites.
Exactly. That's right. And those arenas are all in inner cities mostly. They're mostly down.
They're mostly downtowns. Right.
Strategic location, a wonderful location, and a hard location to intimidate voters, which, as we know, Trump has already attempted to do by sending the military and law enforcement
Yeah, I think we're going to see a lot of that. I think we're going to see a lot of militias and people on the ground intimidating voters, and you're going to get a lot of, and you are going to get delays in ballots being counted and ballots being voted, and people aren't not going to find their names registered when they get to the polling stations. It's just the reality of the world we're going to be living in. There's going to be a huge effort to suppress the vote, and that does not mean it's surmountable. Vote early, have a plan, and check. In a lot of places you can check to see if your ballot has actually arrived at its location, so you can track it. I want to ask you about Mary Trump, Noel, because she has been quite remarkably effective, I think, not only by selling her book, but also in the way she's found her way into the news cycles, whether it's through the New York Times or through her various interviews that she's doing. She's been very effective. And she strikes me as sort of probably the only normal Trump, but it must be sticking at them that she's out there saying all these things and the timing she's had.
100%. I think she's really effective. I think normal Trump, she's the only smart Trump. You know, she's educated, she's intelligent, she's a great writer, you know, and she is being effective, you know, and she was brought into the thing a little bit. I think she was at one of the White House dinners when he was newly elected, and she said she hoped he would normalize himself or the office would normalize him. And when she saw it wasn't, she wrote that book. They're ignoring her completely because they have no answer to that, you know, especially the Marion Trump tapes that were just released last Saturday. You know, they're dead to rights, and they can't exploit her. You know, Robert Trump, Donald didn't talk to him for 30 years. You know, he fired him in Atlantic City. Well, he was at one or two events in recent years, but he fired him a long time ago, and they never talked. You know, he used his dad.
They sounded like they were like really
best
close
friends.
Yeah, no, they weren't.
No, he stopped talking to him 30 years ago. Robert Trump lived in fear. Right, he lived in fear of his, you know, older brother who was a bully. Robert was like a sensitive guy who was kind of well liked around town. He passed away from a disease that they're in denial about. It wasn't COVID. You know, he passed away from the family disease, so to speak. And,
really?
His struggles with alcoholism were no secret up in Millbrook, where he basically lived in exile for the last 10 years.
Oh, wow.
And he was part owner of a restaurant, so he'd walk up to people's tables slurring and drunk. And it was a real kind of pathetic scene, you know, in the last few years. And then complications, you know, led to his demise. And then Trump used a photo op to go to his hospital bed, you know, and then took his body from the New York area, you know, he's probably going to be buried in Woodlawn or wherever, you know, the family plot, and shipped it down to the White House to have this send-off, you know, and invited the press so they could wave at the casket being put in the hearse and driven away. Think about that. This is a guy who owns a club in Bedminster. You could have had a private ceremony that nobody could have been at his own club in Jersey and driven the body 40 miles up to Queens to be buried. That's what anybody with a means and tact and class would do. Trump's like, no, ship it down here. You know, let me do
it as a prop for the RNC week. Yeah.
Right.
Exactly.
It's
no, that's what I mean. So
I
say that because that's a normal Trump family relationship. Sons, daughters, brothers, sisters are seen as how they can serve Trump and the family narrative of keeping the criminal enterprise afloat. And Mary shot through that with a silver bullet. You know, whether it's effective or not, she's the first person to say, this guy's a maniac, and he's been a maniac since he was a little kid. And Marion's audio, if you heard like, yeah, he's an idiot, I had to drive him around to every school, he couldn't take his test. That's how they all talk about him. Jared and Ivanka would make fun of the fact he couldn't read on The Apprentice. You know, they project this image that they're all tight. They're not. Tiffany Trump, I didn't know there was a Tiffany Trump. My job was to take care of the Trump family.
Oh, hi. Who are you?
I didn't.
Didn't Donald Trump know there was a Tiffany Trump at some point, or didn't know there was one Trump when in the Mary's book? She
wasn't on The Apprentice. You know what I'm saying? She wasn't camera ready in his mind. So it was like when in 2016, I was like, oh my God, there is a Tiffany. I forgot about her. But
I think Mary's just impacting so much because I do think people are buying her book. I mean, she sold a lot of books, and I think it's because she's a Trump, people believe her in the middle of the country, I should say. You know, and why wouldn't you believe her? And the things she's saying was as blunt and as direct as Obama was. You know, we're facing the possible end of democracy. That this is not child's play. That if he wins again, the likelihood of another election, a democratic election, is just not very likely. And I think everyone sort of has to sense that and feel that. And to Greg's point about the fear, that is the fear ultimately. I mean, I think it's real fear. And it's ironic to me that he is out there saying he's protecting freedom. And the way by which he's protecting freedom is by knocking down or locking down on law and order, which is not really the antithesis of freedom. So just to meander a little bit there, there's I don't even know where I'm getting at, but the reality of the situation is that this fear is real, but the fear is about the end of democracy. And I think that we're all terrified that is coming to an end.
Right. Yeah, and
let's use the term. Let's use the term. Let's just use the term. I just want to get this term, and then I want to hear it. No, it's about the stakes. And so if we keep putting that word in there, like, what are the stakes? What are the stakes? What are the stakes? And get everybody real comfortable with realizing these are real stakes. And we all have some responsibility for allowing the conservative media bubble and the liberal media bubble for years lob at the other side, right? Of like, oh my God, it's going to be the end of democracy if George Bush gets elected again. Oh my God, it's going to be the end of democracy if Barack Obama gets elected again. So we've cried wolf where we should never have cried wolf because we never could conceive it actually, oh shit, it actually would be the end of democracy. And now we have all these leaders. We have everybody coming out that knows, that would never say these things. They're not pundits on some cable news host, whatever horseshit. This is the former presidents. This is heads of intelligence agencies coming out and saying, this is other world leaders coming out and saying, these are the stakes. These are the stakes of this election. It really is the last election for democracy if you vote this guy back in because he is a fascist. He's a mobster. He's a mobster, everybody. This is a criminal. This is not criminal of like you think other people, oh, well, but George Bush was a war criminal. Fuck you. No, this is something else. This is something different altogether. This is something entirely different. Get your head out of Glenn Greenwald's ass and look at the fucking shit going on. Right? This is the end of democracy. It's the end of NATO. It's the end of the NATO alliance. It's the end of all of the shit that's kept the world from massive fratricide in Europe, from these horrid regimes, from getting their hooks into us in ways that we could not get them out of when it comes to the second economy and criminal enterprises. This is everything. These are human rights are on the line. Oh my God, get this motherfucker out of there, right? Those are the stakes. Democracy is at stake. All the history of us whining and complaining about that and hair on fire and Karl Rove rolling around on the floor about Obama's second term, that was all horseshit. This is the real deal. This is it. Yep. We're in a countdown now to this election, and everyone's got to rise up.
Former presidents at the Republican National Convention. In fact, there were no Republicans of any great note, at the Republican National Convention. Everyone seemed to boycott it. It was just his family.
Right.
And if that doesn't tell you that there's no party structure behind him, there's no party structure behind him. There wasn't even a policy platform. There's nothing there except him. And that's the really scary part is that once he gets elected, that's it. It's him.
That's it. It's a family. It's a family. It's a monarchy. Yeah. Go ahead.
About the stakes. I mean, just what you were saying about the stakes, LB. I think people don't realize. I in my job, I write a lot of history stuff and study a lot of history. The American experiment is so rare and precious, and it's an anomaly historically to have, especially the last 50 years, my lifetime, to have no big wars. To have no want, really. I mean, we have, obviously people are suffering and this and that, but as a society, we're in really good fucking shape. You have to go back to the only analogous time was in the Roman Empire, if you were a Roman citizen and Antonius Pius was the emperor during that time period. That was 2,000 years ago. To be in a period that we enjoy here, especially in the United States, but in the Western quote unquote world, of relative peace and prosperity. And it's so fragile. It's fragile. It's so fragile. And, That's it. It's really, really fucking fragile. And that's what we're feeling now. And you can see the historians know. The historians have been sounding the alarm bells for years, and they know.
Yes.
I mean, not the eminent historian Dinesh D'Souza, of course, but all other historians know.
Dinesh. He's my guy.
Not
my
Sam
go-to guy.
Gorka with
Historical.
his pin?
Yeah, but real historians who actually know stuff know how fragile this is. And once it's gone, it's like COVID. It's like if you don't nip it in the bud, you're fucked. And this is the moment. If we don't get this guy out now, you know, next year at this time, we'll probably all be in prison. Zev, you'll be okay.
I know.
We're going to have to leave.
This is the first.
Noel, I want Noel to weigh in on that.
Okay,
actually.
No, I can't improve. I can't improve upon what you guys said, but to back it up, Martin McFall, Ambassador McFall, had a series of tweets, or a thread today, they call it. And he said, you know, they call it like you guys don't get that. But he said, you know, a lot of the people in Russia had wished they had acted sooner. You know, Putin was sort of democratically elected the first time, and they're like, he's not going to get that bad. You know, when he started consolidating power and putting his buddies in charge of things and sort of selling off the country to oligarchs, they were kind of like, well, it's probably going to work out. And in hindsight, they all wished they had acted sooner. And we're seeing the same stuff, you know, now, as Greg so eloquently just said, and LB. And here's the thing, like, Putin, as devious as he is mild-mannered and sane compared to Trump. The thing you can't underestimate about Trump is that he's a sadist. He's a guy who got off on beating up little girls. He's a guy who ripped his own wife, the mother of his children's, hair out because he didn't like the plastic surgeon she had sent him to get a scalp reduction. So he ripped her hair out and committed a sex crime upon her. Oh, wow. You know, he's a rageful guy. I know that's rough stuff to say, but that's who this guy is. He's a guy who only feels good if other people are suffering. So he's very happy right now because there's a lot of chaos, and all he's ever done in his whole life is break things. That's all he's ever done. He destroyed Atlantic City. He destroyed casinos. That's the real message of Mary Trump's book is, look, this guy isn't like some greedy guy. This guy's a bad seed who everything he touches dies, you know, as Rick Wilson says. And I think that that's a new wrinkle. You know, I say, like, he's like a Pol Pot type guy. You know, you look, let's take the wall, for example, and I'll shut up. He asked for it to be painted black. They pushed back, and then they relented. So at the very least, the wall is now painted black. Right. So if you touch it, you're going to burn and scald your hands. Right. You know, he wanted to put a moat around it and fill it with live alligators. You know, he wanted to put razor sharp wire on it and spikes.
He has bloodlust.
Exactly. That's my point. There's something wrong with that guy. And anyone who's known him since a little kid has known that. He's a sadist. He's somebody who kicks animals. He's just a bad dude. And I'll shut up, but I always say, like, if he had grown up poor in the Bronx, he would have never made it to 20 years old because somebody in the neighborhood would have taken him out. You wouldn't get away with being that sadistic and sort of violent in a cowardly way unless you were wealthy and white and had a father who was protected you and connected to the mob. You know, so
completely no empathy. Like, you can see there's no empathy in anything he says. And, you know, it doesn't matter that it's 170,000, 180,000, and even to his own family when he was making those sort of forced remarks yesterday about how much he loved his family or about Robert, or, you know, it was just all hollow. There was nothing real in any of it. It was just him just saying words that were written for him on a page. And that is terrifying, really terrifying when you think of a US president without any empathy. There's a lot at stake. There's no doubt about that in the next election. Go ahead. Sorry, did you want to jump in there?
No, something just popped into my head. And you know how there's been so much news and stuff in the last 4 years, but this has always bothered me. And I want to circle back to it. In one of the debates in 2016, they asked some fucking asshole asked Hillary and Trump each to say something nice about the other person.
Oh, yeah, this bothered me too.
And fucking Hillary, not fucking Hillary, dear Hillary, Saint Hillary, had to come up with something nice to say about this guy for whom nothing nice can be said.
Right. And she said he was a good father.
He's a good dad or something. Yeah, he said he was a good dad, which is fucking bullshit.
which horrified me because I'm like, oh my God, even you are buying this fucking horse shit about these kids. This
I don't think she was buying it. I think that was the only thing she could think to say. I think that of all the preparedness that Hillary had, that question flummoxed her because there is no answer. There's nothing nice about this guy.
Exactly.
He is, as Noel said, he's a sadist. Yeah. He's a mobster. He's a fucking rat. He would throw Ivanka. He would throw Ivanka, his beloved, into the wood chipper to avoid prison. This guy, right? He's fucking scum, and that's it. Yeah. Abomination is the word you use.
He is. No, he's a bad seed.
Yeah. And what they did to the White House yesterday was just astonishing. I mean, you're not meant to have, obviously, political events there, but the way they did it, the over-the-top way they did it, those logos everywhere, the Trump fireworks that went off, it's just so gross and so tacky. And all the expensive clothes and we're having an economic crisis in America. We're having a pandemic in America. And they're spending $3,000 on a lime green dress. And it's like, what is going on with this? How out of touch is this family and how tacky is this family that no one is even willing to come there and endorse them? Like no one was there to endorse him at all other than his family and his, Kellyanne Conway and whoever.
I don't think they want people there to, I mean, as much as he wants celebrity and you guys have no idea how much this guy fucking wants the celebrities to love him. It's really bad. Noel can talk about that too. But I think they just want it to be about them all the time. I think he just wants his family. It's him and his family, not because he loves his family, but because they're representations of him. It's like, here's me and me version 1.2.0, 3.0, 4.0, me, us.
There she is.
That's it. She is.
There she is, Goya. He had to cancel this. The CEO of Goya was going to speak at the RNC and then didn't.
Her Vancouver hotel got shut down today. That was Ivanka's project. Her project was her projects were Baku, Panama, and Vancouver. And Vancouver's done.
And that wasn't
can you say that again? I can't hear you over the playing of the violins.
Yeah. Look at her. She's so. And I'm so glad, Noel, that you put out a tweet today about go listen to her old tapes. She does not talk. That is not her real voice. She uses that bedroom voice. It's like someone from a sex line or something. Like it gave her some coaching on this is how you talk to your father.
They gave Tiffany the same training. If you notice this week, Tiffany had Ivanka's voice. The soft sibilant S's. That's how in her real life it's an octave lower, and she sounds like she's from Queens. She actually slipped into her normal voice a little more last night. I think she made a conscious choice, like I'm going to be a more forceful speaker. But that's all a put on to help her dad, to manipulate her dad. And she would do it on set. She would be like, hello, father, with the sibilant cooing. And then she'd come back, he's going to do it. Literally, it was like, whoa. It's like they're all acting. They're all playing their own roles. And Jared, we don't have time to get into this, but Jared's got his own agenda in this mix. And it's just it's all insanity. It's Game of Thrones.
It is Game of Thrones, and we're all the bit players.
But the porn version. It's like porn star Game of or like cheap porn
Game of Bones.
Game of Bones.
I'll leave you with this one image. So here's Barack Obama in the, I think it was 2012 White House Correspondents' Dinner, where Donald Trump was a guest at that dinner. Oh, yeah. And there was rumor that, Trump was about to run for president, and Obama, the coolest way ever, does this. This is what the White House will look like. And you see the image of what the White House would look like as Obama projected a Trump presidency would look like. That. And so you've got the gilded columns, and then the giant chandelier and what does it say? The Trump White House presidential suite above it in this tacky architecture, 2 golf players in the front. And, and
she did. She put a lawn in. I mean, Melania turned the Rose Garden into a lawn for $60 million.
I don't know if the 60 million is true, by the way. I looked into it today. I don't think it was 60 million, but it could have been a significant amount, I'm sure. But that's what we got last night and throughout the week was just a gross, tacky, over the top propaganda campaign on top of one of our most precious and prized possessions. You know, we love that White House. It has seen so much history, and as they, you know, rip out so much of it from whether it's just the Rose Garden or whatever else they're doing inside, there's just always a feeling that they're just soiling the place, and it's time to get them out. It really is time to get them out.
Well said.
Thank you, and thanks for joining us, Noel. It's been great having you back on. Hopefully you'll come back on again. It's
Anytime.
Terrific to have you here.
Support Narativ's independent journalism at patreon.com/narrative. And check out our podcast wherever you get your podcasts. And don't forget to subscribe and download.